Hi, this is Alan from Training Systems New Zealand with the second in our series of videos introducing you to the Neulog range of sensor data loggers. I've got the Neulog software in front of me. I've already set it up to, or I'm setting it up to recognize a light sensor. If you see my cursor above that button there, that is the search for sensors button, and if I plug the sensors into the computer through the USB bridge, which I've done with the light sensor after I have started up the software, I'll need to press this button to recognize them. Now I'm going to run an online experiment, so this is the online experiment button here. The software is a little bit slow while I'm recording, unfortunately. This is the offline button, so we'll press the online button, and you can see we've already got a chart there ready to go. We can set up some parameters here. We can actually decide to actually have the data go into a table at the same time. We can have a digital display. I'll leave that there, and we can actually have a grid on our table in our graph if we want. We can set up the X and Y graphs. I think we might just set this up a little bit lower because our light flux is not going to be anything like, I'll make it 100, and we'll leave the XY position there, so we can play around with the color. We can do a whole lot of things there. These sensors are color coded, by the way, and we can actually adjust the color. They all have a default color, but if you had more than one light meter or more than one temperature meter, you might want to change the color on some of them, so the line on the graph is colored the way you want it. Now I can also set up here the experimental duration. Very simply, anything from 50 milliseconds up to 31 days with the light meter, and I can also set up the sampling rate, and it runs from 60 per minute up to 100 per second. We'll leave those at 10 and 10. We can set a trigger, and I must remember to turn this off later. So if the light intensity rises above 0, then it will trigger our 10-second or our experimental duration, which in this case is 10 seconds, and also we can do it when it falls down if we want it that instead of rising up above a certain number. So we can trigger the start of our experiment. When we have measuring two things, we can plot it on an XY graph with, let's say, temperature on the x-axis, for example. So we can run our experiment, we can stop the experiment, we can do a single step experiment. So we've got a data point there, another data point. We can clear the experimental data, we can save the data, save the experiment, we can open the experiment, we can export the data to Excel in a tabular form and do whatever analysis we like. We can also freeze the graph and run a second run for comparison. We can run a synchronized video along with our data collection, and we can print. Okay, so let's run an experiment. During this experiment, I'm going to point this up towards the fluorescent lights in the office, and I'm going to put it down on the desk, and the experiment will complete. You can see the data has gone into the table, the experiment's completed, and I can, with the click of a button here, if I get my mouse in the right place, I can make that fit the graph. So you don't really need to set it up beforehand. Now I can select a portion of that curve for further analysis. I won't do that today. I can move my cursors around and say there's a particular part of this curve that's actually of great interest to me between those cursors, and I can do some mathematics on those. So I can go over here, I can do a linear fit of all the data, for example, which is not very meaningful. I can do a linear fit between the cursors as well, which is better. I can do area and gradient, and I can do a polynomial, I can do Fourier transforms, I can do a 9-order polynomial, fits the data quite well. I can also do statistics on my run, just give me maximum, minimum, average, standard deviation for the data. I can also do some mathematics. I can do logarithms, square roots, a squared. So let's do 1 over a squared. Here we are. That's what it shows, and the axis is on the right hand side. When I have more than one when I have two sets of data in the chart, I can do A plus B is A over B's, which is quite useful. For example, if you've got voltage and current in a circuit, you can actually calculate resistance and plot that along on the same graph. So those are the mathematical functions there. I can, as I said before, I can export the data to Excel. This will be a little bit slow, but just put the name there. And to show you the table come up in Excel in a moment. So we'll just let that go there. I'm going to take the cursor off there. So we're exporting the data to Excel. And there we are. We've got our data. We can do analysis on that now. Just get rid of that. So really, that's the online mode, and those are the major areas of functionality of the software. I'm going to show you the offline mode in a third video, in the next video in the series. The online mode with the radio frequency units is just the same as this mode, and I won't be showing you that separately. Thank you very much for your attention.